Right, David, can you tell us a little bit about performance, and do you have any tips about performance for people, even online on Zoom, which we're going to be doing at the end of the project?
Well, I've been doing most of my storytelling this year online through my Spooks and Bogles podcast on Patreon. Some of the tales connected to the Ghost Walk, to local myth and legend, others riffing off on general themes of storytelling and Spooks and Bogles, the clues in the title. When you're telling a story, the most important thing, the single most important thing, is the story has to have a point. You can be as witty as you like, you can be as sophisticated in your prose as you can possibly imagine. If there's no payoff, and that payoff can be a moral, it can be a comic deflation. Great storyteller, an underrated storyteller, the comedian Dave Allen. Quite often his monologues would lead in for whole sections, and then he just turns the whole thing on its top with a comic deflation in the last line. Yeah. Les Dawson could often do the same thing with some of his great rolling monologues. So the language has to entertain people, but there has to be a point. And it can be the most sophisticated, weighty moral message, or it can be a punchline. That's the one thing. You have to entertain. And if you, as I say, you can be as sophisticated as you like, but if you just ramble and ramble on, like I'm doing just now, and there's no point at the end of it, the audience will feel disappointed. They'll feel let down.
I think something we can all learn from yourself as a performer as well is just the passion and the enjoyment that you obviously take.
If people have always said, "Oh, you've been doing the Ghost Walk for 30 years, don't you get tired of it?" So, well, if I did, I wouldn't do it. For a performer, if you're simply going through the motions, the audience will know it. And one of the advantages of what I do is that particular tales, I mentioned Blind Alec or Jock Rankin earlier on, you can play them for laughs, you can play them for dramatic impact, you can tell their stories from other people's perspectives, you can get a different approach to the same tale. But Blind Alec, at one point, we did his story from the point of view of the devil.
Ah, fantastic. So different perspectives as
just
well.
having a quiet night, sitting on top of the hill, and this drunken bampot comes up and starts hitting him with his Bible. You're not changing any of the fundamental details of the tale.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean it's all part of the process, and location also is very different. If I'm in a graveyard, part of the atmosphere of the storytelling is set by the location. The
Sure.
Gothic gravestones, the castle looming over you, the sun or the moon glaring down on you. That adds to the story. If I'm telling tales in the Smith Art Gallery and Museum, again, a great source of inspiration. Just little objects, little oddities crammed into a little corner, and that will spark so many ideas. But there, the location will dictate how you structure your tale. If you're moving from one story to another, work out your route, work out your direction, work out connections, interrelations between objects, between themes. Again, the Smith is a glorious place for actually just wandering around and saying, okay, how does that link with that?
And there's actually a book, I think it's by Elspeth King, isn't there, about stories from objects?
Yes, which is oddly enough a book I was supposed to write.
Oh, right, okay. Well, your books are also fabulous. I've got them in fact, I've got them in my bag here to be signed by
Well, I'll be happy to do that. No, the History Press had asked me to write Old Stirling Punishments, about the history of crime and punishment in Stirling, and Haunted Stirling.
Yes.
And asked me if I had any ideas for further books, for their various series, and I suggested to them, because A History of the World and 100 Objects was at that point on Radio 4.
Oh, of course, yeah.
A History of Stirling and 100 Objects.
Yes.
But realised very quickly that I was probably the wrong person to write that if they wanted it in a hurry.
Fair enough.
And for many years, Dr. King
Yes.
had been producing short articles for the Stirling Observer
Sure.
on different objects from the Smith collection.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted her, and she very kindly gave me a credit as the inspiration for the book.
Oh, lovely.
At the start of A History of Stirling in 100 Objects. But yes, I think she did a far better job than I possibly could.
That's very
but again,
kind.
that indicates something that I've been saying.
Yes.
You look at a fan, an 18th century fan. When you look closer, it's describing the siege of Bannockburn House, the attack on Stirling Castle, the Jacobite rebellion, different stories, different characters, different aspects of local, national and international history that are all focused on one seemingly insignificant little object. The stories are there, you just have to look for them.